Howdy, and welcome everyone to another episode of the Polynesian Eyes podcast. We're very excited to be here from South Central Texas. We have Mr. Aotearoa out in New Zealand, and then a very special guest joining us today, Siaosi Ilaiu. Next one, it's somewhat similar from your, and this is why it's really awesome to have you because you have such a broad relationship and direct experience with many of these islands, Siaosi. The patriarchal versus the matriarchal concept of political and military power. Obviously, the Tu'itonga and Tonga in general, even with the Tu'ikanukupolu, was more patriarchal. But you've mentioned in certain areas like Ha'amoa, they have the female line with the matriarch. It looks like what's your kind of perspective on any other islands where it's both patriarchal and matriarchal, or any patterns in that area on patriarchal versus matriarchal influence in the Pacific?
Yeah, but I'm not certain that Polynesian islands they have those high titles for women in Samoa, recognized as sovereign or monarchs, and some of them were even a court of wars. For example, that lady Anafanua, her war clubs. If it shows in front of the enemy will run. Okay? Especially, he got two clubs, Fesila Fa'i and Fa'uli Ulito. And it's Nafanua's clubs that were carved from Talakai Faiki's anchor. See? The anchor of his boat. And it's a sign of strength. But not only that, in different parts of Upolu and Savai'i also, I think patriarchal authority and matriarchal authority are even. Let's say, for example, the first monarch was a lady, Salmasina. In Tonga, you'd never see a Tu'itonga, a female Tu'itonga. Manua have female Tu'imanua for generations, not in Tonga. So Tonga was so special in asserting its own system, some kind of principle that are unmoved. In Hawaii, no, in Tahiti, they have female rulers in Tahiti also. See? And Uvea and Futuna were highly Tonganized, so authority of women there is secondary, so as to other outliers. But Samoa and Tahiti seem to be. I don't know about Hawaii. I haven't studied Hawaii that much, but I had maybe for the past 200 years they have a female monarch in Hawaii, maybe because of constitutional legal matters, but to see the system as matriarchal, I have no idea. But I know for certain that Tonga and its western colonies were mostly patriarchal. Yeah, I think that's all I can.
How about Fiji? Are you familiar with whether Fiji had matriarchal or if it was mostly patriarchal? My understanding is mostly patriarchal in Fiji as well. Any knowledge there, Siaosi?
Uh, it's patriarchal to a sense because uh, Fiji they have three distinct uh, uh, authorities in Fiji. There's the Tawata area, which includes Vanuatu and a whole group of Lau and down to the south of the Lau group. They recognize patriarchal authority. But in
Mm.
Rewa is uh, district of Viti Levu from Nandronga to Suva. That's the Rewa district. They had a female monarch uh, from way back. See,
Mm.
I think the that's the Pulepasanga one. The Kupuna Confederacy, which includes the main island of the age is getting to me. I forget. So the Kupuna is mainly patriarchal. So my assessment of the Fiji situation, they both have matriarchal and patriarchal
Lines.
authority,
Okay.
mainly in the highest level of authority. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Very interesting. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Mm,
Any
mm.
thoughts, Masi? Anything to add?
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised with Siaosi Ilaiu's findings because I think that Tubitonga knew what they were doing. It's just part of legitimizing what that this way with the whole father to son, and where they would marry throughout the whole empire because there's stories of Hawaiians coming, people from the big island Hawaii, like you said, Futuna, Uvea, Ha'amoa was probably the primary source of the Taupo people coming to marry into the to Tonga, but it was always mostly patriarchal line with the Tongatapu being a male to pass on titles. But Tonga was able to develop because of the long-standing stability to give that kind of balance was the Fahu system being instituted, being a very family affair instead of being dragged out to a political thing. So um, it's very interesting. It's just very interesting. Just kind of, I'm not surprised with the findings of Siaosi Ilaiu's with how women was kind of 50-50 with some, Tahiti and Ha'amoa and stuff. But Tonga was able to establish because that seems to be a very Tongan Tongatapu thing with the whole Fahu system. Because I don't know if the Uvea or Futuna had something like that because the Fahu is married. Their influence is more of the family affairs, um, uh, family affairs thing. So
Yeah.
I was just
Hopefully.
gonna ask you. Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
ask Chelsea if there was any similar thing because to my knowledge, that Fahu system is a very Tongan, Tui Tonga thing, unless
Mhm.
that happens in here. Chelsea, I was gonna say was there any other like Fahu system that you know of that was kind of like Tonga? Because Tonga was always the political side, the political authority and the succession of titles was predominantly male. We had occasions with Queen Charlotte and other instances of women having titles, but the whole Faust system was probably developed as a balance for that. And I don't know if Fortuna Uvea had something similar like that, or it really didn't
Uh,
exist.
there is a Polynesian uh, ranking uh, authority, and that includes a brother sister uh, relationship. In Samoa, it's called Feangainga, and the same thing. occurred in the rest of the Polynesian islands. The difference in Tonga, because we adopted a Fijian cultural trait, vasu, into our Tongan system. That was through the marriage of a Fijian chief from Lakemba to the Tuitonga Fifine of Tonga. And that's how that system developed. It was in the 1600s. It's just a very new thing. And that's why Tonga is different from the rest, because we have our own sister and brother relationship. And I
Mm.
think the system, the older system was the significance of Mehitanga, which is unrelated to Fahu. Fahu
Yeah.
was adopted from Fiji, and we bestow those status on women. In Fiji, the Vasu is male. You see, the the man is the chief, the sacred status is with men, and very patriarchal in a way. But yeah, Fahu is a system developed in Tonga late, and that's why we are so uh, different from other Pacific Island countries, because we developed the Fahu into a very advanced stage that even the Tuitonga was said to be lower to the Tamaha because of the Fahu system. But it's a
Hmm.
Fijian trait. It's a Fijian import, not something that developed in Tonga. I think
Interesting.
the word in the best word for Mehikitanga I found, I got it in Tuvalu. They call it the Mahikitanga, not Mehikitanga. Eh? It's like the status
Elevate.
of women were always placed highly, and
Mm.
Mahikitanga or Mehikitanga reflects the idea that everything, yeah. So to me, the
Hmm.
Tuvalu term is more blatant
Accurate.
than our Tongan term. Maybe Mehikitanga means plural or something, but
Mm.
Mahikitanga to me it's clearly expressive of the whole process. Mm.
Okay. Did you have anything, Tour? Any kind of anything else?
Yeah,
But
this
that's
is
a
more of.
whole new
Oh,
scenario about the Tongan Fahu and how
yes.
it changed over time and up to the common practice.
Mm. Yeah.
No, I think the delay is kind of throwing off
No,
our
continue
timing on our
to.
questions.
Yeah.
No, what I was going to ask was, from your perspective, where one of the major topics that a lot of our viewers are very interested in, and we've already shared our perspective on it, but would love to hear with your background. And you've been able to have conversations um, throughout Polynesia and the Pacific, and also through your studies and research. From your perspective, where I want to break this question into two questions, maybe. First, where do you believe the Polynesian, looks like we might have lost him, but when he comes back, I'll ask him. But
Mm.
I think that the
I can hear
delay in the
you.
data. Oh, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can still hear you, Paulo.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have a two-point
Yeah.
question, just in case that you have two different answers for it, but the answer may be the same. Do you prescribe to the idea that Polynesians were, the founders of the Tongan Empire, were people who came in with new ideas, and they were already people on the islands, but instituted a government, social, and political
Mm.
system and educational system? Or do you believe the people who populated Polynesia were the first ones to land on the islands and establish an empire? But kind of give any thoughts that you have from your end on the origins of the Polynesian culture and people.
Yeah, that's a 1 hour question, but I
Mm.
will try to.
Hmm.
I'll try to answer it uh, in a different way.
Okay.
I I'm not saying that all Polynesian islands were virgin islands. I never believe in the exploration of a particular race into a new territory that there were not no people there. I'm not taking that perspective, but what I take is that once Tonga was populated, and of course it's 900 to 1200 years BC, according to the latest archaeological find. We see consistency of what was found in, let's say, Nukuleka and the rest of islands in Vava'u in Hawaii and Ewa. The consistent supply of evidence, mainly uh, communities, let's say, beach communities. It reflects same culture, the most ancient uh, evidence of land of human settlement in Tonga is consistent everywhere. So to me, if there was uh, earlier settlement, uh, they would have had different evidence for that. But I'm not sure because I don't
Mm.
believe in that we arrived in Tonga. It was never inhabited uh, from a realist point of view. Because to me, if there were people there and they left and they didn't leave enough evidence for us to find, and then we come in a great amount of people and we settle there and we never record in our myths encounter with earlier population, and plus the charcoal and all those shells and things. When you look at evidence like that, then you say, "Oh, perhaps we are the first one who settled here for a longer uh, duration of time," and that's what I take. But because uh, fighting in Samoa is different. Maybe around 600 BC or even older. We have in Samoa the same consistency in human settlement, a pattern. So we can conclude, oh, we were the first to settle there. But I still believe that we are the people who stay there longer, the longest, because I uh, I don't have evidence to suggest there were people settled there before, but I believe that they might have been people living there before, but they left not enough evidence for us to find.
Mm.
And the same excuse that archaeologists say about Samoa is that the island is sinking. Maybe evidence is buried with the sea level.
Yeah.
Who knows? But we as researchers, we stick with evidence only. Therefore, my answer is we are the ones who live there first. And where we come from, there are two ways to consider, and I cannot give a definitive answer
answer.
for that because there are evidence from South America, also the evidence from Southeast Asia. So until I see uh, uh, some logic in the future to determine
Hmm.
which one, then I might be able to provide freely an answer for that.
Yeah. And I think what makes that also challenging is if we really believe that our ancestors were master navigators, then circumnavigating the globe is makes it even harder, right? Because that's why you can find so much evidence of
Yeah,
Southeast Asia and the Americas is because if we really believe they were going everywhere, then
Yeah.
naturally you would have evidence collected from there, DNA
yeah,
and historical. I'm open to both ideas, like you said, whether it
mm,
was virgin findings or a certain group came in with technology and advanced civilization building. I'm open to both options because you can easily see it going either way. um, Another question I have, and
mm.
this is a personal one that I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are. Me and Masi are on opposite sides of the road on this one, so I'm interested to see what your position is. Do you believe that Tonga, and when I say, and I have to clarify this a lot because we do get different kinds of view. When I say Tonga, I say that, but what I really mean is Polynesia in general, or the empire. Do you believe that there was a written language at some point, or do you believe it was always oral from the very beginning?
Well, like you said, we can only look at evidence. I've studied the Langis and I've seen marks on it. So many Langis in La Paja. And I believe there was uh, basic language used only by a particular priestly class. Not. I think language was a technical thing in those days for communication, only relating to the Tuitonga line. Uh, I know maybe you two already look at at some of the cornerstones in the Pai Pai
Mm-hmm.
with marking like Egyptian honorifics in there. So Egyptians never come to Tonga to carve those things. It's Tongan who went to Uwe and marked the stones for transporting back to Tonga. So I believe to make marks like that, that's a sign of language. But
Hmm.
for secret service language like the Mossad or something like that, but there were signs,
Yeah.
and maybe only particular professional people who learned. Who knows? Loau might have had his own language, but uh, there's nothing there for us to find now. Luckily, we have those stones at the Pai Pai and all those langis to learn of that. See,
Mm,
Uvea
very
cannot have a
interesting.
language
Hmm.
without us.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I take
it
the
must
position,
be, yeah.
and I know Masi is somewhat open to it, but not quite. I'm
Hmm.
trying to convince him. But I take a kind of reverse engineering type of approach, and it depends, in my opinion, on what your belief is. If you really believe that Polynesians were master navigators who understood astronomy, who, for all intents and purposes, were civil engineers. You look at the Fonua Tanu, you look at the Pai Pai,
Mm.
that requires a certain level of understanding. And for me personally, by observing civilizations, you cannot accumulate knowledge if you don't have a written language. right? If you don't have a written language, you're losing knowledge, not gaining knowledge. And there's only two ways to look at it. If you believe that there wasn't a written language, in my opinion, that when the first quote unquote, I like to call them the founding fathers of the empire, if they came with no written language, we have been in consistent decline from the very beginning. Or when they arrived, if there was a written language, there was a buildup of knowledge. And then once you lose the capacity to write down information, then there's a decline. That's kind of
Mm,
my thoughts and why I believe there must have been some kind of way to store knowledge, because how else can you memorize every star and everything and every pattern of a bird or temperature of the water to know, oh,
mm,
Uvea, you go there at this time, at this place, with this star, with this, it's impossible for people to remember every little detail like that. But that's just my thoughts
mm,
on that.
mm. No, my I was just thinking, I mean, it makes sense. I'm not there yet, but like when I do, because I'm learning, every time we do this podcast, like especially the engineering, to me, the written language, I can see it probably needs to, there is a possibility, like when Xiaoxi mentioned the langi, just building a langi that takes ingenuity and the amount of work to build that. It's like that's kind of crazy, and you build thousands of langis around Tonga. It makes sense that there had to be some kind of form of communication that was passed down, because that's a lot of information just doing that. And then when we looked into the Fonuatanu, it one just to do 1 acre for 1 year, and it's 100 acres of the Fonuatanu, and it took 100 years to build. There has to be some just amount of work just to even move soil those days, and not just soil. There was like a bunch of rocks and stuff first before you add the soil to create 100-acre land. That's pretty nuts. But and I think it's just very difficult to understand, because especially the the prime Tonga's the Tongan Empire was at its prime, or the Polynesian Empire was at its prime, all the way up to like the 1500s, and then steadily it was starting to erode, and then a lot of the civil wars, and then maybe it was lost, but we're still learning. Like what Xiaoxi said, maybe in the future we may see more evidence, and then maybe I'll fall into that thinking. But but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see a parallel there. In medieval England, uh, those who can read and write exclusively uh, aristocratic people, or people of the academic circle. None of the commoners know how to write
Mm,
or read. So, uh, if I can mention, this is unrelated to our topic, and I think it was John Wesley who came with his pictures to corners and start showing the people, drawing of pictures. That's Jesus. That's
Mhm.
the disciples, and so that they understand what is in the book. So maybe it's the same thing in Tonga. Only exclusive group of people, uh, those of those who learn the language, and they are the only ones who know. The rest of the commoners and the lower ranking people don't know how to write, or to
Yes.
make those marks. Or
mm,
but
mm.
that's an idea.
Yeah.
No,
And that's
yeah.
that's what we're just discussing ideas. Unless you can travel back in time and watch, and even if you watch, you still don't get it 100%. But even if you, I mean, unless you can travel back in time, we're just discussing some interesting possibilities there. Um,
Yeah.
a quick question. You mentioned uh 'cause I actually believe in your idea. When you have the assassinations, it's funny that you brought it up. I actually thought it could be a religious transition between the Tuitongas being
Yeah.
assassinated, except my thought was the opposite of what you were thinking. Siaosi, I was thinking I'm a firm believer uh that Hikule'o was the first god, right? That's my personal opinion. And then when it goes from Tangaloa to Aho'eitu, that possibly the Tuitongas, in order to as generations go on, there is a deterioration of the knowledge, especially if there's no written history. And then there is a temptation to elevate yourself higher than you actually are. And so I'm a believer for multiple reasons. We don't have to get into it. Hikule'o brought Maui, Tangaloa, and the Taulas to Tongatapu. Then there was a Tangaloa line for who knows how long. And then something happened that resulted in the Tuitonga. Just like we talked about the Tuiha Takalawa and the Tuikanukupolu, there are reasons for those changes. It's my personal belief. Something happened. The Tuitonga um, line was created out of the Tangaloa according to the oral history, and possibly there was a shift in the narrative on the religion where Tangaloa gets elevated, because if Tangaloa gets elevated, guess who gets elevated? If we believe in the oral history that Aho'eitu comes from Tangaloa, the Tuitonga line gets elevated higher, in my opinion. And there may have been a religious shift of no, 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 no. Tangaloa is just a human, and Hikule'o is the god, that there could cause something happen that led to the assassinations. But my question is this: give us what you understand from what you read, the nature of Tangaloa as a god, the nature of Hikule'o as a god, um, and in your thoughts on Hikule'o, where there are two ideas of Hikuleo being male and some ideas saying it's female. But just kind of your understanding of who Tangaloa is, who Hikuleo is as gods in your perspective.
Yeah, I'll make it short. Basically, uh, Hikuleo is not a female. The female status given to Hikule'o was proposed by some Wesleyan missionaries. They look at
Mm.
The figurines.
the miniature of Hikule'o, yeah, figurines, and they decided, oh, she's a woman. To consider Tonga is so uniquely having a female god called Hikule'o might contradict the general belief in the rest of Polynesia, both Eastern and Western, that they saw Hikule'o as male god.
Mm.
Mm.
And plus there's one myth story about those devils who went to Pulotu to steal yams and fish from Pulotu, and Hikule'o as male god caught them, and they were punished. But because of the female lady they picked up who helped them survive and rescue them over back to Mama. But that's about Hikule'o. About Tangaloa, I'll leave it open to allow because anything about creation here in all mythologies of the Pacific, it points at Tangaloa. Kohai, Koau, Komomo, it was who was the one who were present at the development of those kingdoms. It was Tangaloa. It was Tangaloa who brought down if a papa from Langi, it was Tangaloa who ordered the bear to come and chop up the thing. And then the story of Aho Eitu. So there was no indication of Hikule'o being part of creation. And that's why I believe that they were gods, they were all gods. But the one that were associated with creation, I take it as mentioned in our mythologies, is Tangaloa. So to say that Tangaloa was elevated uh, later, but he was a creator, it's something I reserve for now.
Mm. No, that's
And
fine.
I know to allow have studied this more. We were surprised by his question, so we need to study it more. We need to give it further study to, but from my short understanding of Polynesian codes, Tangaloa was the creator, and to me, if there was another god who is above the creator, uh, it's hard for me to take at the moment.
Mm.
So I'll leave it
No, that's
open
fair.
in its subject to further debate in the future. But yeah, uh, we'll have to look at that issue, Tualau,
Yeah,
because
no, that's
you must
fair.
have
That's
had
fair.
a deeper a deeper sense to this topic than I do.
Yeah, it's more personal, right? There's no real like quote unquote hard evidence because those things are once you start talking about gods, it's more up for interpretation. But I do have a question because of your experience with the oral history in Ha'amoa. This is a common
Yeah,
question that actually arrives from a lot of our Samoan viewers on the podcast. There's a big debate even amongst the Samoans whether Tangaloa is a god or a person. They say that Tangaloa is a title and that there is a title that still exists in Samoa today. That's what we've heard from some of the comments, and then other people say he was a god, but I'm not as familiar with it. I'm wondering, do you have any knowledge of a Tangaloa title or person or persons in Samoa today? Because that's some of the things we've heard from comments from viewers.
yeah. In Savai'i, there a story about Savai'i, and sorry, I forgot the names, but
No, it's fine.
Tangaloa saw a man's wife, and he was in love with the lady, and he came down from heaven and asked the man, "Can I have your wife, and you can have my title?" So the man agrees because title is very important. In Samoa, you have your alipaia and you have your tafa'i, one pair of tafa'i. Tangaloa got 8 pairs of tafa'is. So nobody can refuse an offer like that. And that's how the Tangaloa title of Sa Taua in Savai'i uh, was, came about because of that exchange.
Yeah,
But
can you?
Tangaloa in Manua is different. He's called.
Okay, so
Mm.
in Manua, it's more God.
According to the Manua people, uh, it's a god, and in the whole of Samoa too, in the
Okay,
whole of Upolu, Hawaii, and Tutuila. But because of that Tangaloa performing an act like the Greek uh, gods coming
Zeus.
down and have offspring in the world, yeah, like Zeus. So he preferred to give away his title to a person in Hawaii in favor of taking his wife.
Hmm.
But so it's a title, a chiefly title in Hawaii, but he's called elsewhere. And uh, and the funny thing was, there is no residence or claim to by Samoans that Tangaloa was Samoan or having residence in Samoa or even in Manua. But in Tonga, we have a residence of Tangaloa in Tonga.
Mm.
Uh, if we regard
The
the
oral
toa tree
history.
from Bataaho to Langi, that's Tangaloa's residence. And then all the women from the Pacific were sent to Tonga to have offspring from Tangaloa. See?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Not going to Manua to seek Tangaloa's yeah.
Bloodline.
So
I
that's
have a
something that
I have a
and
quick question.
I think I should mention this.
Oh, go ahead.
Uh, there is always a team. Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. You go ahead.
Well, yeah, I would like you to mention what you're saying. I just had a question on what
Yeah,
the
go on, Ronald.
tafa'i means. Yeah. So what is you said that Tangaloa had 8 tafa'i? What does that? I don't know what that means. If you
Oh,
could maybe help understand, like explain in detail what is a tafa'i and why is the number important? Just for people who
yeah,
like me who don't know what that is.
yeah, yes. That's why I come to a conclusion that the Tuikanokpolu was uh, created from a Matai system because Ngata was regarded as a lipaia like Tangaloa and Taulu Tolu, Ngata's protectors, Nugu and Niukapu, they were not uh, tied together to scare off the people of Hifo. See? It was a Samoan tradition for a newly created title to tie together the Lipaia or the sacred chief with his protectors. The Tafai means protectors. So
Ah,
they have to be tied together, and after the chief took the cover, and then they moved down to their position. And instead of Tangaloa having one bear, he got 8 bears because he's God. See? And the high chiefs of Samoa, especially in Upolu, Tatui Ana, Tatui Atua, Ngato Itel, and Tamasoli, all those 4 titles with their pair of Tafais were given to Salamasina. That's why
Yeah,
Salamasina was declared Tupu of Samoa because
the
he's got
highest.
4 pairs of Tafai. And becoming Tupu, she became Tafaifa, means she is with 4 pairs of Tafais, protectors. See?
that's where the
And
tafa'ifa
Nugu and
comes
Yukapu,
from. Mm.
yeah. Yeah, that's where the Tafaifa comes from. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Anything else, Masi, on your
No, no,
mind? Any
no,
questions?
not that I have at the moment. Not that I have at the moment.
I'm looking through all my questions. I think I asked all of them at different times.
Mm.
Um, so and then looking at the time, we're almost at 3 hours. So that's usually a good timing for a podcast. But anything else, Xiaoxi? Anything you wanted to bring to the table to
Mm.
discuss further, or anything that you wanted to go back and touch on a little bit from anything we've discussed so far?
Uh, there's one thing, but this is unrelated to our topic today.
Okay, that's fine.
That's fine.
I know that, I heard from those who use Facebook a lot debates on uh, the Tui Manua Empire and Ahau'etu's Empire.
Yeah.
And that's a surprising thing for me because the title of the Tui Manua is to me is very suspicious. That as a head of an empire, he was called Tui manua ma Samoa atoa. So the word Samoa is there.
Mm.
The evidence uh, says the opposite. Samoa became something because Ahau'eitu conquered Tutu'ila, Savai, uh, Upolu, and Manono, the whole four islands, and he gave it to the Tui Manua at the time by the name of Moa, so that he can have Moa's daughter as wife. So instead of hanging on to the four islands, he gave the group of islands to Moa to get the hands of his daughter as wife, and she was Lolo Whakangalo's mother, that
Mm.
lady. So he named Tutuila, Upolu, Savai, and Manono family of Moa. That's
Ha'amoa.
the
Ha'amoa.
meaning of
Mm,
Samoa, yeah, or Ha'amoa. Eh? So to say that the Tui Manua was an emperor before Aho'eitu is unthinkable, because if that's his title, Ma Samoa Atoa, because there was no Samoan or there was no uh, 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 name
mm,
Samoa before Aho'eitu. But if he refers to his empire uh, to Aho'eitu's conquest, maybe that's what happened, because, but all the islands says they were not under the Tuimanua, they were Whakalongo to Tonga. Well, Whakalongo is a
mm.
common name, a common term all amongst the
Really?
Polynesian islands. And you ask, which empire you were under? They said, Whakalongo to Tonga, to Tuitonga. See? Where's the Tuimanua Empire there? But
Mm.
I know it's a huge call, but I'm just saying that
Mm,
Samoa never existed before Aho'eitu conquer
mm.
those four islands. And in exchange for a wife, he gave it those four islands to his father-in-law
Moa.
Moa, and
Mm.
by naming the four groups family of Moa, so that to get
Yeah.
a wife.
No, it's
And
actually. I'm
so
glad you brought this
uh,
up, Siaosi. This is
Yeah.
actually a heavily discussed um, comment. We've discussed it
Yep.
many times.
Yep.
Before this podcast, Xiaoxi, I was very open to the idea that possibly, the Tuimanua could have been before Aho'eitu, right? I was open to that idea. I was open to that possibility. But as the program has gone through, and as we pulled up archaeological studies, we've pulled up all these different things, and the more we dug into it, the less likely we were comfortable with the idea that even the Tu'imanua, even predating Aho'eitu. And we even pulled up a archaeological study done by Samoans at Ta'u Island, where they clearly express the the challenges to the Tu'imanua predating the Tu'itonga. So that's definitely
mm,
something that's heavily discussed, and we've discussed it quite a bit. Um, any thoughts on that? But I do have a question for Xiaoxi. Masi, if you have any comments or question to add about that topic. What is that
Oh,
history of Samoa?
see,
Okay.
this is the book written by a Catholic priest, and it was published in 1979, I think, republished in 1979. See, he was in Samoa in the 1800s, and
Hmm.
the story of Aho'eitu and the existence of the term Samoa is in this book uh, by Brother Fred Henry. I think you can get it in the library. or
No, that's really good. So,
ebooks.
History of Samoa by Fred Henry. Is that the correct, Siaosi?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Brother Fred Henry. He's
Yeah.
a priest. He was a priest. Yeah,
Oh, very
it's
interesting.
clearly stated there. Yeah.
Masi, any question or comment on that?
No, no. Kind of like you, Tua, with the whole debate with the Tui Manua Empire and saying that it predated the Tui Tonga Empire, and it's always been suspicious because I remember even looking from the evidence that I've seen of the title holders of Manua, it was a very short. There's no way it didn't
Yeah.
even predate of just some of the lists that Tevita Fale created. So, and there was no way that it would predate. So that was a suspicious um, outlook for me when people were arguing that that was a thing. And lately, the more we've kind of delved into it, we've even saw a thorough study in the islands of Manua, saying that they've estimated it only 500 years of the two Manua people that's been living in Manua, and that's along the lines with I think Kaufunua's time period from what we kind of see.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, that's why it's good to have you brought this up, Shiazi, because you are right. It's still a hot topic discussion, and that's why
Mm.
we like to discuss it here because we feel like there's not enough Polynesians around the world at least having a conversation like this, so that we can. To me, it's better that we understand the true origins and our Polynesian history because we can once we can get to the truth, the better we'll rise together
Yeah.
as a people. So, no, thank you for that. That's just kind of my comments there.
No, and it's kind of funny, Xiaoxi, because I know you said you have Samoan blood in you, and I did my DNA test a few years ago, and I
Mm.
have a lot of Samoan blood in me as well, and Melanesian. Obviously, from Fiji, our family history says we have Fijian blood from my father, and then obviously a lot of Samoan. And they even tell me, I think it was primarily in Upolu, is where a lot of the was it Masito Taumasanga?
Mm.
What's the name of the island with the main airport?
Uh, uh, Tua
Upolu.
Masanga.
Yeah,
Yes, Tuamasinga.
Oh,
That
Aana.
yeah. So in that
yeah.
area, so it shows that
Tangaloa
I did
Airport.
my
Yeah.
yes. So right over there, that's where a lot of the my ancestors obviously tied. Um, so sometimes we get accused of, oh, you're only saying that because you're Tongan. But for me, and we've said this a million times, the idea of Samoa as an independent nation and Uvea and Futuna as these independent nations, those are new ideas. Those didn't exist in the 1200s and the 1100s, the very beginning of our Polynesian people, because I really do believe this. We were all one Polynesian nation. We had a lot of not just political and historical relation. It was one big family that was ruling throughout these different areas. Um, but it's hard to say, oh yeah, let's come and get united as Polynesians if we're not going to be united on the truth, right? For me personally, if it ends up quote unquote Tui Manua before this and that, it's a win-win for all of us because we all have DNA all over the place. But at the end of the day, it matters to find out the truth. And if we aren't built on the truth or at least seeking for the truth, it's very difficult to establish long-lasting and meaningful unification amongst our people, because if we're unified on something that's not true, it's very difficult for that unification to last. But that is definitely a
Mm.
very important question, because we need to be able to understand how we're related so that we can come together and be unified. There is no, oh, Tonga is this, Tonga is that. Tonga is Uvea, is Futuna, is Tuvalu, is everything, because all of the intermarrying that was going on. But yeah. Anything else
Mm.
to add to that topic, Siaosi, that you wanted to dive into on the Tui Manua concept?
Uh, Yes, I think the name of Manua itself tells the story.
Okay.
It's a wound, right?
Mm,
We have a Tongan term for it, monuka, eh?
Uh,
But it's Manua in Manua. So it reflects a breakaway of some sort. We had no injury relating to the name of our island, Tonga. All
mm,
it says, Tonga Tapu is a sacred Tonga. Manua is a term used for breaking away or injury or whatever related with something uh, connected to misfortune of some sort. So to
okay.
me, to look at Manua, Manua is and Tonga Fusfonua, if we believe the story that he was the first to Manua, maybe he was one of the Tongan royal family who decided to depart from Tonga for some reason, but
mm,
he had a special kind of authority on political uh, area, which signifies by the matau. See, and
Mm,
Maui and those tried to trick him to get the technology back from him because he took it with him, but they want it back. See,
yeah.
and that's the kind of thing that we a starting point of looking at is to look at why Tonga Fusfonua as a first to Manua, and there were plenty of stories, not only, but that one tells us that the the Tui Manua, who by the name of Tonga Fusfonua, took some kind of technology or knowledge so sacred that is needed in the homeland. See, because if we go back to archaeology, Manua was settled what few hundred years BC.
mm,
Tonga was settled maybe 800 years before Manua. So
Mm,
no one can convince me to believe that Manua was settled first and they have their own royal family before Tonga. See,
mm,
I take archaeology, I take linguistics evidences from those area and say, well, it must be a fake news, but it has been told for hundreds of years, and it becomes reality to those who believe it. See,
yes.
mm,
and even
Yes.
Tongans believe it.
Well, and
My
the
friend Okus
interesting.
Mahina and
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, some of our Atenisi scholars believe that, and
mm,
you know why? Because our teacher Futahelu tend to believe that idea
mm,
without examining the, what was the elements that involved
Hmm.
in what form that kind of reality. But
mm,
yeah, but that's why I mentioned his name before because you can ask him something contrary to what
mm.
I say, and he has his own answer. See,
No,
Yeah.
and
but
that's something we
yeah,
really
for
believe
me,
in.
mm,
That that
yeah,
the whole point of having conversations, and we believe this in this idea very clearly. We believe in, like you were mentioning, the soup, right? That we throw this new ingredient into the soup for the discussion.
mm,
That's what we're trying to
yeah,
do, except that it's a soup of ideas, and we throw in the ideas
yeah,
and we let the ideas compete and the evidence compete, and then
mm,
everyone can make up their own decision as to what they feel and what they believe, what
yeah,
brings most sense to their mind. um and that's something that's really important, that as we've had these discussions, obviously I believe that oral history is very important, right? But oral history has weakness. And the weakness of oral history is the story can change by whoever's telling the story. So you have to consider the oral history. science has its own weaknesses, right? And strengths. So you bring the oral history, you bring science, you bring your life experience, and then you just try to see what makes the most sense based of what you
Mm.
have in front of you. And that is one of the things that I think a lot of people, like you were saying, they hear only one oral history, but they don't realize, even with the conversations we've had and videos we've shown on the Tu'i Manua oral history, there's many different versions of the oral
Yeah.
history. And so you cannot just 100% just rely on oral history. There's probably little golden nuggets you can get from the different stories, but then what'll give it more clarity is, like you were mentioning, archaeological, scientific history that will help you, like, oh, so far, if we follow the science, this part of the oral history, maybe it's correct, but we don't have any evidence to back up that idea in the oral history. And we just keep improving every time we get more data, as there's more studies, as there's more discussions. Um, because that was one of the things that became very clear to me is, how can we say there was a Tu'imanua empire, but it is well accepted in Ha'amoa that Tu'imanua rarely had full control of Samoa itself. So how is it that you're going to
Yeah.
say you had an entire empire when they only mentioned like one or two Tu'imanuas having very strong control within Samoa, and it was for a very short period of time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is
Yeah.
good. I
That's
mean,
right.
yeah. Man, I think we've hit the 3 hour mark. Xiaoxi, I'm very grateful for your
Yeah.
time. I've learned a lot today, and I have so many ideas that I'm gonna be spending the next week thinking
Yep.
about over and over, revisiting certain ideas that I've had with some of the patterns that you've shared. I really appreciate your willingness to have a conversation. I've noticed that sometimes people are afraid to even have a conversation. And I'm like, this is how we
Move.
develop new
Yeah.
ideas. This is how we progress as a people. This is how we come together as a people.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to say is, don't be afraid of conversations, because, but you should be afraid when we're not having conversations. And people usually say, well, why, Tua? Because when there's no conversations, war is coming. So let's have conversations so we never have to get to war. But I really appreciate your time. We're very grateful. I
Yeah.
want to turn the time over to Masi for any closing comments, and then Xiaoxi, you will have our last words to close us out for today.
No, thank
Yeah.
you, Dua. Thank you, Shashi. Just like what Dua Lau mentioned, we appreciate your time. It's crazy because I don't know if it's because of the times and thing. Maybe many people, because we've kind of invited many people from the academic kind of side to kind of help help kind of just share their story. It's just a conversation because a lot of them we're still waiting for, and it's been taking some time. But we appreciate your coming in, Shashi, because these are the conversation that helps us understand our history. To me, it's crazy. We're in 2024, and our Polynesian people still don't know just the basic foundation of just understanding our history. And this is kind of why we kind of just did this podcast, so we can just have a conversation, and then everyone just pick out what what ideas is out there so we can have a, a consensus of what what our history is. But we appreciate your time, Xiaoxi, and like what
Yeah.
Dua said, we appreciate the time and your ideas that you've provided, and hopefully our viewers will appreciate you having you on the Polynesian Eyes podcast, because we did learn a lot, and we're just
Mhm.
grateful for the time that you've given given up to join us. And yeah, just appreciate it, Xiaoxi. And then just leave the closing remarks to you, Xiaoxi, before we close.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I would like to thank you both for giving me this opportunity, and this is something that is central to my life, to share my knowledge, because I to research and gain knowledge from other people, so I have to give it back to any form of communication, like the podcast. And I hope that you can find more to develop this network, because in the future, this is what our Polynesian people need: a network that have all the answers, or to look for sources, and you record it and keep it for the future of our Pacific people. And I'm enjoying our time together, because Kaili and Mahina and I we always have the same thing like this when we dialogue and we put in ideas, and then we fight, mostly debating. But so I'm used to it, and I enjoy it.
Hmm.
Even though our one was a more uh, independent one, because we share our beliefs without knocking each other out like we do. But yeah, I'm just thankful for the opportunity.
Excellent.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
If you need me in the future, I'm open to more conversation. Mm.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
But thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Siaosi. And I know
And
for a
Merry
fact.
Christmas and Happy New
Oh,
Year to
yeah.
you too.
Yes. Merry
Merry
Christmas,
Christmas.
Siaosi Ilaiu. Happy New Year to you and your family and your extended family.
Yes, 100%. I appreciate that. And if you
Thank
could
you.
just stay online, Xiaoxi, after I hit end recording, um, I just have one more thing I would like to request from you, but we'll end the show with what we always say, right, Masi?
Yes,
Don't be
sir.
afraid, stay curious, and ask the hard
The
questions.
hard questions.
That's what we invite our viewers. That's what we believe in. So until next time, peace.
Aro.